All right. So this morning, we are thrilled to have you for our Connecting Communities and Schools webinar. My name is JC Williams. I'm the operations manager for Holspire, as well as the point of contact for Holspire School Network.
And I'm Erica Ayers. I'm the school wellness consultant with DHEC's Division of Nutrition, Physical Activity, and Obesity Prevention. And I also serve as the executive director for the South Carolina Governor's Council on Physical Fitness. So the Schools Network and the Governor's Council have been working together for several years now to improve, to support student health and fitness. And an example of this collaboration has been this webinar series. So many of you may not know this, but February marks the 1-year anniversary of providing these webinars. So if you've been with us this whole time, thanks for being part of the ride. And if this is your first webinar, the purpose is to enhance collaboration between schools and communities using the whole school, whole community, whole child model as a framework to support student health. Now, before we introduce our panelists and the specific topic for today, I just want to share a short 3.5-minute video on health education in schools, because that is the topic for the day and why it's important.
An apple a day is not enough. Don't let me start preaching. But shouldn't the children of the country that's the wealthiest also be the children of the country that's the healthiest? That makes sense. You'd think that would be true. I know I would. I'm just saying, wouldn't you? But that's not the case with our kids these days. Kids' health is declining in all kinds of ways. We need to improve it. We can, and we will. But it starts with thinking of health as a skill. A 21st century skill that you practice. Practice makes perfect. The unhealthy can't hack this. We've got to teach our kids by example every day. And it's tough because people stop listening when they think they know what you're going to say. Like, drink more water, eat more vegetables, especially the dark leafy green ones. Eat less sugar. Don't drink soda, especially the sugary caffeine ones. Stop watching TV. Go play outside. Go for a run or a walk or a bike ride. Get your heart rate up every day of the week. Chew your food more. Eat slower. Meditate. Sit still. Get your heart rate lower. Set yourself a health goal. It doesn't have to be wild. It takes a lot of things to raise a healthy child. And healthy kids do better in school. They have better jobs. They lead better lives. They marry healthier husbands and healthier wives. Good health is a skill, and teachers need to teach it. Now you got me preaching, so I might as well preach it. Health is not a one-semester class you take in middle school. It should be a part of every subject. Not the exception, but the rule. Learn about good health in math, in English, and in social studies. Work on a project about nutrition in science with your buddies. And parents need to be involved too. Teachers can't do this alone. Good health starts at home. We need to own this issue because the stakes are high. What does it matter if we try to increase our scores in math and reading if scores are dying before their time because they got fatter and fatter? Healthy students make wealthy earners, not to mention better learners. The choices you make every day have the biggest impact in the biggest of ways. Check it. Why else would they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away? But new solutions to old problems. That's the American way. Who cares about keeping the water clean and pure? There isn't a problem if they can't sell you the cure. Don't keep looking for new technology to be your medical savior. Of course, it's easier to be saved by a miracle than it is to change your behavior. So we need to value health education the way we value math and reading. We can't keep feeding our children the same old lessons like junk food full of saturated fat and sugar and chemicals. We can do better than that. We can and we will. And that's the truth, because the future belongs to the healthy youth. Amen.
I've been showing that video for years, and I felt like with today's topic on health education, it would be a perfect way to sneak it back in there. If you like that video, I'll make sure to either put the link in the chat or make sure it's included in your follow-up. But you can just Google, YouTube, and Apple a Day. So how are we in South Carolina prioritizing health education? What does that look like? Again, we're working together, and we're using the whole school, whole community, whole child model as our framework to improve our collaborations, our partnerships between our schools and communities across multiple sectors. And we're placing the child in the center because all that we do is taking a comprehensive approach to support their health and learning to make sure they're healthy and ready to learn. And in South Carolina, our great panelists for today are going to show how we do that. But before we introduce them, we want to find out who y'all are in our audience. So we're going to open up our first poll. And once that gets started, I'm going to hand this over to JC. Thanks, y'all.
We'll give you about 10 more seconds to answer our first poll. And while you are doing that, just a few reminders about our webinars. We will be recording this session, and it will be available on our website as well as through a follow-up email. If you have questions for any of our presenters during the webinar, you are encouraged to use our Q&A chat feature. So we will have time at the end to answer those questions. All right. So as we can see, we have people from state agencies, community coalitions, school staff, and a few others that are joining us this morning. Our presenters include Beth Ann Rahali, Erica Gambrell, and Lily Hall. Beth Ann will be starting us this morning. We have a poll question on health education. If everyone will take a few seconds to answer if you believe teaching health education is a priority in the school system. You'll rate it with 5 being the highest priority, and 1 with being the lowest priority. We'll have about 5 more seconds to respond. Thanks everyone for your input. We can see 14 people thinking that it's a high priority, which is a great starting point, but some of us still think it's a low priority. So hopefully Beth Ann will be able to share more information about this topic.
Hello, everyone. I'm Beth Ann Rahali, and I'm really glad to be here today. I would love to share some information with you today about how we as individuals really can make a difference, and also how education is impacting social, emotional wellness of kids, not to mention all the other areas of their life. I loved that video. Thank you so much for that, Erica. That was wonderful. So when I just would like to show you a little blurb, if you'll go to the next screen, please. I'd like to just, if you'll take a half of a second and read that. It just talks about what really happens with health education. Hopefully you had a chance to just take a second and read it. And I just want to say that when we have positive health education, this actually is all about student success. To be healthy is to be healthy mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, financially. The wellness umbrella is huge. And so what we're really giving them in health education is the opportunity to be successful individuals, and in all areas of health. Go ahead and go to that next screen, if you will. So I thought I would start with what is actually health education. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, we thought health education pretty much was reproductive education, drugs and alcohol, nutrition, and fitness. And that's all we knew. But that's not really how it works. And this is a chart, I actually have 3 of them, set up based on what actually is covered. We are one of the few educational areas that is has a lot of laws that mandate what we teach and how we teach it. And so we have here in the chart the South Carolina laws, the teaching standards, and these are the things that we have to follow as health education teachers that I can honestly say we don't believe are being followed in our state as the way that they should be. And then, of course, the life skills and success skills, which we all would like our students to have. So let's start with the social media and internet safety, which is huge, particularly with our young people in middle and high school right now. And then we can move into healthy relationships and dating, which touches every single person in their lives. Aaron's Law was a law that was passed to help us teach kids about safe and unsafe touch and all kinds of other abuse-related things. And it's really broken into 2 areas. One is more of a domestic violence, and the other one is more for kids to just understand what is and isn't good. Communication skills, that is a huge part of health. They don't necessarily get taught communication skills in all their other areas of education. And with that, we teach a lot of conflict resolution. We teach a lot of basically soft skills, the things that they're going to need to get a job. In my health class, we actually run interviews so they can get those soft skills. And gender equity has been a big issue in the last year because there was a new change to the law. And so, of course, we're addressing that as well. Could we go to the next slide? Under this slide, we look at the drugs that are affecting our kids. Opioids, there was a law passed because of the major problems we had with opioids and heroin. And then we look at vaping. Vaping is such a huge issue, and I think all of you would agree this has to be addressed. It needs to be, or we're talking about young people being addicted again. We were doing so well with smoking, and then vaping came. Mental health after COVID has been a huge push for understanding social emotional health and learning. Resiliency is embedded in the standards all over the place. We know that students that are resilient have better mental and emotional health. Goal setting, we do need to know where our future is going. Here we go with success again. And then of course we have the comprehensive health education. I just want to take a minute to say CHE stands for comprehensive health education, which means that's a combination of all of the things that I'm talking about. Often though, people misunderstand it and they call comprehensive health education reproductive education. That's not the case. Reproductive education is one very important part, but not all of our education. Next slide, please. And then we have some of the things that you may not have known. Kids are required to have CPR training in high school. And first aid is a very big part. And middle school, we cover, and elementary school, we cover all the different kinds of safety into high school. And then there's nutrition and sleep and all the things that we were just hearing where he was preaching about, some of the other things that were really important. Go ahead on to the next slide, if you will. So what comes to mind after kind of sharing those thoughts is looking at the poll. And I saw a pretty good, there was a pretty wide range there. People who didn't feel it was important, people who felt it was very important. But I believe that if we all were to come together and we were to try to help everyone to get a healthier education, get an education in the skills, like he was saying in the video, the students need these skills. They need them for survival. They need them as much as they need math. They need to know how to eat and how to live and how to take care of themselves and how to identify illnesses. They need to know goal setting and communication skills and all these other things we've talked about. But we do not necessarily prioritize them because of all the things he said in the video. And so we're looking at what are the possible barriers. What kind of barriers are we running into? Well, some of the barriers that we're running into, that we believe we're running into, are related to the teaching of the subject. A lot of times, the teachers themselves are kind of thrown into teaching something they have not maybe the full background on. For instance, you may have some background on reproductive education, but you may never have been trained necessarily to do success skills, or vice versa. So we really feel like it would be very beneficial to train and help teachers to continue to learn and grow. And they also need a lot of support and other resources that can help them get the information. Teachers are teachers. If they're given the right information, they can relay it and actually help the students gain the skills that they need. But they need to be trained, they need to be certified, they need to have the background information they need. Next slide, please. So where are we going to get it? How do we overcome this? Well, I'd like to talk to you today about how there are many organizations out there that are doing just that, putting together information for teachers to help them move on and gain what they need, and full lesson plans, and or just background information. And some of the organizations I'm going to feature are South Carolina Association for the Advancement of Health Education, which is known as SCAHI, and South Carolina Health Advocates, which is really a consortium, and South Carolina Key Leaders, which is the leadership of our state in health and physical education. And then, of course, the Department of Education and their trainings. So if you could go ahead. The first one I'd like to talk about today is SCAHI, or South Carolina Association for the Advancement of Health Education. I had the privilege of being president for 2 years of this organization, and an opportunity to work with some fabulous people there. They reach out statewide. We are part of a larger organization called SCAFORD, or South Carolina. It's really the state organization for health education, physical education, and dance. And we run a conference every single year that is extensive, which gives all educators in those areas opportunities. So we do statewide professional development as well. SCAHI as an organization runs webinars much like this for health educators. And if you're a member of SCAHI, they are free. That's really kind of a good perk for them. We also make sure that that the webinars we run have CHES and MCHES credits, and we help people, assist people in getting those credit, or getting into CHES and MCHES, and how to get those credits if they need them. We also have a website which has many resources on it, and if you would post that website, we're going to just kind of post these websites as I go, but if you post that website, you can find many health education related sources. We have a forum. In fact, we're meeting Thursday evening, tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. If any of you would like to attend the SCAHI meeting, you are more than welcome to. We'll put a link up maybe at the end for the meeting, or you can just contact me and I'll be glad to send you the information. Anyone is welcome that is interested in health education. And then finally, we have an advocacy team internally, and our advocacy team stays attuned to legislation and updates and alerts. But we also have formed a forum, and our forum is working right now on even further educating. Could you go to the next slide? And so we are creating a mentoring program. We've already put together a survey to send out to, we hope, public and school teachers, finding out what their needs are, and then we are in the process of creating the trainings based on those needs. We've already put together a lot of the information that that people would know, like the slides I showed earlier came from our research. We've done a great deal of research, and we're looking for ways to webinars or other live trainings so that we can help teachers be able to get the information they need quickly. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. I'd like to talk next. Oh, my slide got a little bit odd there, but I'd like to talk next about the South Carolina Health Advocates. The South Carolina Health Advocates were founded in 2014. It was Donate Life which is the people that had changed the license so that when you go in to get your license, you can choose to be a donor. Donate Life was our initial sponsor. And what we did was we called a lot of people together and formed a consortium. And our purpose was to create as many free resources as possible for health education teachers across the state and to partner with our public health friends to do that. And so if you'll go to the next slide, we have three different three areas that we feel are important. Obviously, prevention. Real health happens at the preventative level. Lifestyle changes that was talked about in the video, and then finally donation. They sponsored this consortium initially because you can't have good donation if you don't have healthy people. So the idea was to bring educators, students, community members together and happier. I'd just like you to flip to the next slide, and these are some of the people that we have in our consortium. This is by no means an extensive list, but we have Donate Life, obviously, Cancer Pathways, NAMI is on our board. We have a NAMI representative. We have the American Red Cross represented, Be the Match. Definitely, we have two different DHEC portions. We've worked with some Aaron's Law people, and far beyond that, name an area of health, and we have somebody that is connected to us in some way. On our website, we actually put up links to everyone's health education information. We've also written an entire middle school scope and sequence with lessons, and they cover every standard in our present health standards. We're working on the elementary. We have 1 through 3 finished, and we have a lot of high school things on there as well. So could you put that up for that? Yes, go ahead, next slide, and also post it. The goal was to be a free one-stop shop for health educators and to have everything in health standards. We are already getting ready to meet next month, and our goal would be to already begin talking about when the standards are updated, how to address all that already. Let's go ahead and move on to the third one. The third one is the South Carolina Health and Physical Education Key Leaders. This is made up of 3 groups of people. We have our district coordinators for health and physical education and or teacher representatives. For instance, we don't have a coordinator in my district, but I am the teacher representative from Fort Mill School District on this forum. And what's really exciting is that we can connect with each other, and we have public health organizations that are members that come to our meetings and share their ideas. We have state organizations that come to our meetings and share their ideas. So go ahead and flip to the next slide. What is our goals? Our goals really are to share current information. So we have reports from state individuals. They share out with the district coordinators and teacher representatives what's going on from the state level and making sure that we are all on the same page. We also have statewide discussions. A lot of times it'll just be an email discussion where somebody will put out a question and to everyone. There's approximately 95 people that are on that listserv that are leaders in our state. And we're always looking to make sure every district's included. And then we have a speaker each meeting, and we meet at the Skaford Conference every year. We have a big meeting for those that want to attend. Again, another way to get information out. And go ahead. So finally, I just want to mention the Department of Education. We really try to listen to what they tell us is going on and address and pretty much get that information out to our people. And we really are thankful for the trainings and things that they put on, and all of these organizations try to stay in touch with the state and Department of Education so we can get the word out. Any questions?
There are no questions in the chat at this time, Beth Ann.
Okay.
But participants will have the opportunity throughout the webinar to add their questions.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. Coming from teaching physical education, it's great to know how much work is going into supporting teachers across South Carolina. So even if you are missing that district level support, I saw that in the chat a few times, seeing these groups working together is wonderful news. So thank you for sharing.
Actually, I'm going to put a pitch in if I could. For the key leaders, we meet on the 28th at 4 o'clock. If anyone feels like they'd like to be interested, we would love to have you.
Thank you. So our next presenter is Erica Gambrell. We have a poll for everyone on school involvement. So before Erica begins, if everyone could please take a second to answer, what is preventing you from being involved with the schools? You have the opportunity to choose more than one answer at this point, and we'll give you about 10 more seconds for this poll. All right, thanks to everyone who answered. We can see that a majority of you are already involved with schools, and we love to see that. Two problems that are arising are not knowing who to contact and not knowing a topic that they could connect with. We will now turn it over to Erica Gambrell for Communities in the Schools.
You're on mute, Erica.
Yeah, here we go. All right. Good morning. My name is Erica Gambrell, and I'm coming to you from Lexington High School. I've been in education as a health teacher for 17 years, and we love to involve our community in our schools. So I am presenting to you different ways that we can do this. All right, so why do we want our communities to become more involved? It gives our students more resources with all the things going on with our teenagers today, our youth. They need to know where to go in the community to get the help that they need. And research shows that it increases the student achievement, it definitely improves the behaviors, and it gets the kids coming to school. And it also provides the schools a stronger reputation. We want to make sure that the community knows exactly what's going on in our schools. Don't go off of the hearsays and the rumors. And so we want you in the schools to be part of it and be our partners and work with us alongside of us through all the problems that we face. All right. So what does this look like? What can it look like? The number one thing we use the community for, I will say, in our health classes is utilizing our guest speakers. And also we've used them this year to be involved with our festivals. And we also have a career day that our career specialist put together. And then one you may not think of is chaperoning. So I'm going to go into more detail about these. And I broke the guest speakers down by our units that we use in health education. And so the first one that I'm going to use is our human sexuality unit. And just thinking of how the guest speakers can come in and work with our students, we have Pathways to Healing, which used to be Sexual Trauma Services, and they come in and they do some presentations, and they can do up to 8 weeks, 8 lessons, not weeks, lessons. They can do up to 8 lessons for you and your school. And we also bring in law enforcement sometimes that will talk about the domestic violence, and also medical staff, either nurses at your school, or you can utilize medical staff within your community to come in and speak to your students. Beth Ann touched on Aaron's Law. This is a law that is mandated in the state of South Carolina. And so everyone is teaching this. And I have brought in survivors, and I also brought in an investigator that spoke. The survivors obviously gave her personal side of her story. And the investigator talked about how they would handle a report. Able South Carolina, I worked with our CC1 and CC2 SPED classes, and getting the curriculum for Aaron's Law was a challenge. And the reason it was a challenge is because there's no curriculum that exists for the SPED population. And we know that that is one of our most vulnerable populations when it comes to abuse. So I partnered with Able South Carolina, and they helped me create the curriculum for those classes. So that's how I involved them. All right, financial literacy. It is mandated that we start next year to have half a credit class in the state. I don't know if you are aware of that or not, but that just got passed. So financial literacy is mandated to be taught, and they have to pass it, and it's going to be a half credit. And so that is a great way to utilize your accountants in your community, utilizing your local bankers. So this is going to be one that will probably be on the rise now that this is going to be mandated. For our career unit, we bring in our career specialist, and they talk to our students about how to build a resume, and they walk them through, and they tell them why it's important to start this. We teach our health in 9th grade, and 9th graders have absolutely no clue about a resume. And so they come in and they do a fantastic job with that. We also do mock interviews, and we bring in our local businesses. We had Chick-fil-A here. We've had Zaxby's, Publix. So your local businesses, they come in and they interview our students. And we also utilize our teachers, but it's good to have someone come in that is going to be the direct person interviewing to give them the feedback. For CPR, there is the Rouse's Law that is mandated to be taught in schools. And we utilize our athletic trainers here on campus, but you can also contact your local EMS and use your school nurses here as well. And they can come in and help you with the CPR, hands-only CPR. For nutrition, we revamped our nutrition unit this year, and we brought in some nutritionists from our community that came in and talked to our students. You can bring in local chefs. We are right across from the technology center here on our campus, and they have a phenomenal chef that's over there, and we brought her over, and she spoke to our kids on how to make a healthy meal. And you can also utilize your cafeteria staff. And I know that Lowe's Food used to have a field trip that students could go over and do a grocery list, and they could just do a mock grocery shopping. So it puts them in charge, not sometimes they have no choice in what they're eating. So that puts them in charge of their choices. And mental health, that's the next one that we're going to talk about. Obviously, this is when you can utilize your school counselors. And I've learned that, especially with freshmen, they have no idea who our counselors are on campus. And so this is a great way to get them in front of the students in a different environment as well. NAMI comes in and they have a presentation on ending the silence, which is suicide prevention. And they also talk about the different mental illnesses. And we utilize the South Carolina Attorney General's office. Sexting is a topic that not a lot of people want to talk about. And we find that some people are thrown into teaching health education, and it's not necessarily people that are certified, as Beth Ann was mentioning, it's not educators that are certified in specifically health. So some may be physical educators, physical education, and they have to go through the additional training to be health certified for the reproductive unit. And but sexting is a topic that you can use some reinforcement on. So our Attorney General's office has a presentation. Emma Rush is her name, and she does a phenomenal job presenting that to our students. She actually Zoomed with us yesterday. And then mentoring, utilize your people not only on staff, but your community to come in and partner with your at-risk kids, and that can always benefit. All right, ATOID, which is alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. We have used former undercover agents that come in and speak on illegal drugs to our students, and they can go through the drunk driving and give them the goggles, and they put them through a sobriety test with the drunk goggles on. SROs in the building, that is something that gets a little tricky at times because they get pulled in so many different ways. And if you have them as your speaker, we may have an emergency on campus that they have to be pulled from, but they love to get involved with our students in a positive manner and have that connection before they have to meet with them for not so positive situations. And Smoke Free SC, we tried to bring them in for the vaping, and they were getting their presentation approved. They had updated their presentation on vaping, and they wanted to do a trial run before they started it again. So we are continuing to work with them because they, as Beth Ann mentioned, vaping is definitely on the rise and is a constant discipline problem at the schools. So if we can get additional reinforcement from our community on that, we would definitely appreciate it. We have the South Carolina Department of Transportation. They have a distracted driving simulator. It's a go-kart, and they come in and they set up a course, and the students get on the go-kart, and of course the students absolutely love it. And that they do a phenomenal job. They do a lesson. We do the lesson prior to them coming out. And I found out that this year, the South Carolina State Troopers have a rollover simulator. And so we're going to try to get them on campus. Now the kids don't get in a vehicle or anything of that nature, but they're able to witness it and have the visual. All right, so how do we do this? And I know some of the people said that that was one of the reasons that you may not be involved in the schools is because you don't know who to contact. And I know we have a lot of district health coordinators on our webinar today, and that could be a good starting spot. Point is to contact them, and they can get you to each individual lead teacher at the schools. Your career specialist would be a good contact as well at each individual school, because they're going to know a lot about the career unit. And a lot of times they will be the ones that put on the career fairs. We do a lunch and learn type event here for a lot of businesses in our community. And like I mentioned, the lead health teacher at each individual school would be a person of contact as well. Knowing the scope and sequence is going to be beneficial because you'll know the time frame of when you would be able to get in the classrooms and be the additional resource for that teacher. And just the approval, some districts are very strict on outsiders coming in, but I think that it's been lifted a little bit now that we're not in the COVID years. So the approval should not be as difficult to get into the schools. We had to go to Zooms versus in person. And that is a little more flexible for guest speakers, but I still like it to be face-to-face. I think that it has such a, the impact is just so much more when you're sitting there and you're able to talk one-on-one with the students versus being through the computer. I mentioned fall festivals. We had a fall festival this year, and we reached out to our community and asked them if they wanted to participate. It was kind of like a trunk or treat, and so we had a lot of businesses that wanted to come, and so that's a fun atmosphere that you can represent your businesses, and the community can get involved. Sporting events is definitely a go, and I would say probably contacting the athletic director versus the district health coordinator for that would be your go-to. After school programs, schools have so many things going on after school, and that's a great way to get the community involved as well. I touched on this, the careers, the mock interviews. Again, this was such I mean, we haven't done it in a couple of years because of the COVID, but I hope we get back to this soon because it was so beneficial for our students and they learned so much. I had multiple students tell me that they were so prepared for when they had their first live interview due to having the mock interviews. So that was huge. Internships, career specialists would be your contacts for that at the schools. I currently have a social media intern. I run our social media at Lexington High School, and she does it on campus, but they are allowed to go out in the community and do internships. So that is a huge way to get involved. Field trips. I mentioned going over to Lowe's Food for the nutrition unit. So that's another way to offer the classes to come to you. Chaperoning. We had a homecoming dance this year and I was running low on adult supervision and we had over 600 students at the homecoming dance. So I wanted a little more adult supervision involved. And so I reached out to our National Guard and they were right. They wanted to be there. Anything that involves fun and the students, they are always willing to help out. So that is a good way to get involved is chaperoning. We will never turn someone away that wants to volunteer their time. After school events, as I mentioned, field trips, and then just volunteering. You know, come in and just saying, can I come? I know at the elementary level, they love to have people come and eat lunch with them. So I don't think in high school, that's the thing. So, but yes, volunteering is always appreciated. So what are your roadblocks? The lack of contacts. And I think that this may be a little more of an issue at smaller schools. I think at larger schools, you have the contacts there. So just finding out who they are. And again, I would start at the district level and then going and filtering into the school and finding that lead teacher that's going to be able to help you. The lack of knowledge of the curriculum, I kind of touched on each of the main units that we do here at our school and our district. And I'm pretty sure that most schools do it the same way. A lot of schools have health embedded into their PE classes. So that may be a little bit more difficult to get into the class. It's not a classroom, it's more of a gym setting. But most schools have a theater that you could come into and do a presentation. And then time, trying to get into the different schools in your community. And again, the approval. Most districts have forms that you need to fill out and get approved, and going through the approval process may take a little bit longer than normal. And
Thank you, Erica. That was great information and very easy to implement if someone is ready to take those next steps. So we appreciate your presentation. Our next presenter is Lily Hall. She will be presenting on, should we continue our presentation? I have a poll to share. This poll is about Public Health 3.0. The question is, are you familiar with Public Health 3.0? Yes, somewhat, or never heard of it. I'll give you about 30 seconds. Thanks everyone for answering the poll. We've got a large majority who have never heard of Public Health 3.0. So now I will turn it over to Lily Hall for School Health is Public Health.
Thank you so much, JC. Good morning to everyone, and thank you all for allowing me some time to really do a very brief presentation, but I hope it's chock full of some great information that you can share with your constituents and your communities as well. But I want to talk about health education from the public health perspective using principles of a whole community. So let's talk a little bit about school health is public health. And we're going to look at the whole school, whole child, whole community model and how it aligns with Public Health 3.0. We're going to talk a little bit about the early connections. I definitely want to mention the village voice, defining a whole person and why health equity is important. And then I'll provide a few examples of a whole community connection, or a few of those. As most of you know, the WSCC model is what I'll say going forward, is student-centered, yet it emphasizes the role of the community in supporting the school and its connections between health and academic achievement. So I don't have to repeat that because most of you know that. But health education in the school environment does begin with the individual student, and it extends beyond the school environment to the surrounding community. And you heard both of the prior speakers sort of note that. When we engage schools in meaningful ways, families can reciprocate these healthy behaviors and settings away from school. If not already known, I encourage you to visit the virtual Healthy School widget that's on the CDC's website to see models in action. So some of you may be familiar with the white paper, Public Health 3.0. Next slide, yes. In October, that was released in October 2016 by the Office of the Assistant Secretary in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. It was called Public Health 3.0, a call to action. And although this was really a challenge or a task for health departments, it was geared toward how we can better serve the communities. And that includes the schools, how we better partner with those in our communities. So it focused on public health, but it set the stage for the health departments to refine and embrace our role as champions of the community health improvement. So let's explore the Public Health 3.0 era and how we can connect school health education and community health. So uncommon to popular belief, school and community dynamics were changing rapidly prior to the pandemic. But unfortunately, politics had a huge influence on education. It created barriers for reaching the ultimate healthy and whole child. As the leader or the chief health strategist of public health, your health departments were challenged through the pandemic to work more toward filling bucket number 3. Those first 2 buckets talk about public health era 1.0 and public health era 2.0, where we focused on working inside the walls of the health department. Then we tried to innovate, or we wanted to innovate by establishing more partnerships and going outside of the walls of the health department. But bucket 3 is where we are now, and which aligns more closely with working as a whole community. Even though we've already been doing this, the pandemic exposed many gaps and highlighted the need for us to work more toward goals number 2 and 3 of Public Health 3.0, and that's engaging cross-sector collaboration, as you heard both speakers speak of as well, and looking at number 5 of innovating funding. That became a huge issue across the pandemic. Next slide. So those early connections were seen more through a public health eye as diagnostic space. So the goal was to make sure that kids went to school healthy. And so if there was an outbreak or something like that in the school environment, public health officials used those outbreaks as opportunities to study and explore better approaches to school health policies and prevention efforts. What could we cross lines and work with our public officials to make a change? But we must not, we must move beyond the scope of public health, as noted in the video at the beginning of this webinar, which I love that video, Erica. So we're definitely going to have to share that out more. It really gets to the point of everything that all of the panelists are talking about today. A major lesson that was learned from these early efforts was just like the old African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. But in this new case of Public Health 3.0, and where we can have our connections with the whole community, it takes a village to nurture a school. Next slide. And here is the village. As we work to engage the whole community, Health departments must take the role as a chief health strategist to inform, educate, and extend public health beyond the walls of the health department. Even though we are the main health agency, as you can see with this egg diagram, we are not the only public health agency. You see schools at the top left hand, the red bubble there is part of this diagram. And you see the web of connections that there are available through all of these different partners. It's just a matter of coming together and discussing what those partners and what those different things look like. And if we can go back to that slide for just a moment, I apologize. You see that there's many different partners here that includes the schools. But again, it takes the collective village voice. And that's basically what you're looking at in this egg diagram of how we can cross sector and collaborate on many different things to transform health. These connections is how we impact the social determinants of health, which was really exposed a lot during the pandemic. It's also how we engage those non-traditional partners, because some of you may be wondering, how can law enforcement, fit into this diagram as public health? Well, they're your safety officers, and they have many other roles throughout the schools. You have them as SROs and others in the school. So there's many different ways that we connect to engage with non-traditional partners, but we also promote grounds of health education in everything that we do. And I know we start by doing what Beth Ann mentioned in her presentation of removing those barriers and working through the associations and some of these public health partners. Next slide. So also uncommon to popular belief, the medical or physical health care makes up less of a whole person than we imagine or that we know. There are many other factors that must be considered and disparities addressed. The whole person, and why we must approach health education and other health promotion from this concept is in this display that you see here. So you see that medical is just 20% of what we've always believed is the video again alluded to this. It's not just, making sure that you get that apple a day from the doctor, but it also extends beyond that to understand what are those health behaviors that a child or a person must know to be able to thrive. And what are the factors in their community that affects how their behaviors are, panned out. So this makes up a whole person. And this is why it's important that we definitely focus on bringing the communities into the schools, as Erica noted, and help navigate some of those community resources. Next slide. Also, as noted in the video in the very beginning, considering the whole person also requires that we consider the 21st century learner as we innovate and partner to improve their overall health. These learners are ageless and ready to embrace the tenets of a whole community, so we have to use health education to equip them. And we should also capitalize on building better connections with you and your school environments. So they need these health education skills to lead the future and their future. Next slide. This is one of my favorite infographics made by Robert Wood Johnson, and they have redone these. So there's a lot of different varieties of these now. But we can't create and sustain viable partnerships without viewing health through a health equity lens. That will allow us to drill down to those root causes of those health inequities that we talked about earlier. The pandemic exposed this need more than ever when many health disparities were highlighted. Working from a health equity standpoint will create an understanding of root causes that leads to the creation of customizable interventions, because one size does not fit all. So just a quick example of looking at this, and some of you may be familiar with this, so bear with me as I quickly review it. But if you look at that top line, you see that the goal of this is that everyone will be able to ride a bicycle, or they'll be able to ride. So when you look at equality, you see that it's not true there. The only comfortable one riding there is the young lady. That guy, I feel so bad for him. The young lady that's in the wheelchair, she can't even get on her bike or even get into motion, and the little boy is just not going anywhere. But when you add equity and give everyone what they need, then you can clearly see that everyone can ride. And that's why it's important that we don't interchange equality with equity. We need both. And this is how you view it through a health equity lens, giving everyone what they need. Next slide. Another example of why health equity is important. Some of you may be familiar with Robert Wood Johnson's initiative called Where You Live Affects How Long You Live, or in our terms, we say where you live matters to your health. And so let me just quickly mention the map to the right. That is a map of Abbeville from a few years ago, looking at life expectancy. And this widget is actually on the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation's website. I'll be sure to share that with Erica so she can share that out with everyone. But what is going on in Abbeville that causes the life expectancy in the green area to be 83 years, but you cross over that main highway there and you have a life expectancy of 73.4 years? What is going on in Calhoun Falls, or what is not happening, or what is not available in Calhoun Falls that is available up above that in the green area? So this is the type of work that we must work on, and it is not going to be just a public health agency. It is actually partnering with the schools in those areas to create better environments as a whole. Next slide. And this is just community efforts and pictures. And this is basically some of the work that the health department does. But I wanted to bring your attention to just two of them. In the top left picture, you see a picture of a street, and around this particular work, we do what's called complete streets, where we may work with the school to sort of help assess the area around the school for a more walkable community. But at the same time, in the community that connects with the schools, we want those same walkable communities to promote physical activity in that regard. And in the top right-hand corner, you see our efforts where we work to provide tobacco education and prevention in the schools as well. And some of those other things are connected in some way to what we do in the schools, but those are two that directly relate to the school. So next slide. And I wanted to sort of end on talking about a few specific hold examples, and I won't go over all of these. I'll just highlight three of them because I will follow up again with a more updated PowerPoint. And Eric, I do owe you another one because I have made some additional notes that I'll send, but I will share this out so that you all can get more information on some of these. But I just wanted to highlight a few specific examples. We all are familiar, or maybe most of us are familiar with Walk to School Day, which in itself is a great opportunity to promote a healthier and more active child and family if they participate. And it activates, the whole community partnerships. But using that example as one is great, but there are many other opportunities that you will be able to engage the community and schools in a partnership. And Beth Ann and Erica both mentioned several ways that you can do that, but these are specific more to coming from a public health standpoint and some of the things that we do. And Erica can talk to you all day about open community use. But the BMI surveillance is, this happens in certain areas across the state, but specifically in the upstate for many years now, about 14 years, we have conducted a BMI surveillance in Spartanburg, Cherokee, and Union. So, and those happen, of course, in partnership with schools that are participating in FitnessGram as well. So do not want to shy away from that. It's that same, it's very similar, but we just did it to drill down to more information for that community level because they asked, we want to know what is going on in our local community. And FitnessGram provides that same exact data as well. They just do, these projects do different grade levels. Then, of course, CSHAC, as we call it, where you have community representatives and community representatives and health department representatives that are presenting on the coordinated school health advisory councils and provide technical assistance, resources, and data. You, of course, have coalitions like Live Well Greenville that partner with the schools in different ways. And so public health officials sometimes help to navigate those and coordinate those. A new initiative that you're going to hear more about, hopefully, is Kids in Parks. That's coming up. But I do want to pause for a moment and mention a little bit about Handle with Care. This is a program that currently is under a grant, and we're sort of looking at it as an example or pilot that hopefully we can roll it out across the state in the very near future. But Handle with Care, in essence, is a program where if we engage children who have been affected by ACEs in some way, and I hope most of you are familiar with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. If they've been affected by ACEs, this program pretty much connects the law enforcement with the school, because if a child is involved in some type of altercation, a adverse situation in their home, the school will actually the law enforcement would actually call the school, and they basically tell the school, here's the child's name, here's the grade, or I think it's a couple of things, and I don't want to give you the wrong information there, that is given to the school, and they basically say handle with care. What that allows the school to do is to really work with that child to make sure that child is not blamed, and they don't really have, some adverse consequences from being involved in that situation that they were in. And it helps the school to really be involved in from a community standpoint, knowing where the resources are, where there are connections for that child to, they may have a food insecurity issue in the home. And if the school knows about it and can connect them with certain resources, that's a great opportunity to handle them with care. So more information will be attached to this PowerPoint when it's available as well about that. And again, it's not across the state yet, but our hopes is to extend that across the state. We're working with 10 school districts that is part of the Western Piedmont Education Consortium right now. So again, there's resources through CDC, Alliance for Healthier Generation, the School Health Index. All of these are tools and resources that we use to provide technical assistance to the schools. Another that I'll quickly mention is the Academic Public Health Department. This is something new. It's kicked off in the upstate region right now, but I'm pretty sure this is another thing that will spread across the state. And you'll hear more about that, but it's providing different experiences, not just thank you, Drake, for posting that. The Academic Public Health Department is not just about having an internship, but it's really looking at the whole trajectory from high school to getting them into some type of public health education arena, looking at research, looking at ways that we can engage differently in the community, including things like data walks. And then finally, the Coaches Clinic is just an event that we attend every year with over 7,000 coaches participate in this particular clinic, where we focus on brain injury and concussion prevention, again, working directly with the schools and providing technical assistance there. Okay, next slide. So this is a shameless plug, but I'm going to throw it out there because I think Beth Ann kicked it off by talking about SCAHI. But I definitely was going to do a shameless plug for SCAHI, that if there's anyone interested in being a member of SCAHI, we'd love to have you, as well as a member of the South Carolina Public Health Association Health Ed section. We'd love to have you as a part of that as well. But I also am a volunteer for the CHES and MCHES study sessions that we do. We will have another virtual one coming up for this next testing period. So those resources will be included also as part of my information that I give to Erica as an update of this PowerPoint. But those are ways that we promote health education and really get the tools and skills needed to the population we just spoke of. So that concludes my presentation, but I do want to leave you with a final thought. School and community connections are key, because a healthy community leads to a healthy school, which ultimately leads to a healthy and whole child. So thank you for your time today, and I will turn it back over to Ms. Jacy.
Thank you, Lily. That was great information. And I believe Erica has more information for all of us.
Yep. While McLean is checking out our questions, I just want to remind y'all that we still have a couple of webinars left for this school year. So the registration for our March webinar, which will be focused on supportive nutrition services for healthy learning, because March is National Nutrition Month, will be on March 15th. And so that registration flyer is ready, and we will, I think we can put the link in the chat now, but this flyer will start going out, if not after this webinar, then definitely tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. And then we also still have sessions in April and in May. So continue to hold those dates on your calendar. And then just another plug for SCAPER, but this for the SCAPES people, and JC could speak more on this, but that's okay. I'll give it a shot. The SCAPE, so that's the Physical Education Association within SCAPER for our PE teachers. They do have a free online webinar coming up on financial literacy. Like Erica mentioned, that is a required unit now. So for any PE teachers that you know of who are also teaching health ed, this would be a great opportunity for them to learn more about that. So we've got some great SCAPE/SCAPER folks who are going to be presenting. So we'll make sure that you also get the registration information for that. And again, it's free for members and non-members, but obviously we encourage your PE folks to join so they can get additional benefits of being members. So McLean, I'm now going to pass it on to you to see if we had any questions for our panelist.
Thanks, Erica. Erica, or sorry, not Erica. Actually, yes, Miss Gambrell, there was a question for you in the chat that says, is this content appropriate for elementary school?
What content specifically? Does it say?
It does not. Miss Diane Walker, do you want to elaborate more on that question?
If they're just referring to guest speakers in general, I would say definitely guest speakers can be included in the elementary curriculum. I don't see why, as a teacher, coming from a teacher, I'm not going to turn away the expert in the field of what I am teaching. There's so many things that we cover in health education that it's just beneficial for everyone to include the community in it.
Thank you. And then there was a question in the Q&A. The school district I teach in focuses primarily on academic subjects because teachers and administrators are pressured to get their test scores up. Therefore, health education is placed on the back burner. How do we move health education to the forefront and get buy-in from administrators and district leaders?
I believe that probably the best way to move it forward would be to let your congressmen and representatives know that you feel that health education is important, and to get the word out to parents. Generally speaking, I hate to say it this way, but we're preaching to the choir here. The people at this meeting are the people who really care in general most of the time. But parents, if parents had any idea the level of content that is in health education that's not being taught, I don't think they would be happy. So that would be one way that to just let parents know, and then if the parents were to move forward and then let their legislators know. And the other one would be to require health education as an actual certification, rather than allowing that certification not to be a requirement for health educators.
Thank you so much. And that is all for the questions so far.
I'm going to shamelessly plug into answering that question as well. And, I think a lot of times working at the state level, when we're trying to get administrative buy-in, we always try to make that association between healthy students being better learners, like the video we saw and like what all of our panelists have said. And sometimes when I'm having a conversation with a principal or a superintendent, I ask them, I'm like, what do y'all do when it's testing week in your schools? Like, what are your beyond like the testing, like how do you make sure your students are ready to, rock and roll that test so that you get your best scores? Because we know that's a priority. And they're like, oh, well, getting sleep's important. Getting a good, hearty, healthy breakfast and lunch is really important. And we think it's also really good for them to, go outside and, get the energy out. And so that they're refreshed and ready and they get that good sleep and they eat that healthy meal so they're ready to take a test. And I'm like, yeah, that's really important. So you know what else is important? If they have those opportunities throughout the school year while they're learning the content so that they're ready when they sit down and take the test. And it's like, oh yeah, yes, that is important. So anyways, that might work with some and not with others, but it's again, trying to make that case that in order for them to be ready to learn, they have to be healthy to learn. So thank you for the person who asked that very important question. So do any of our panelists or anyone else, we're at time in about 3 minutes, have any other lasting thoughts or comments? And again, I'm just going to say thank you to all of our panelists. I have loved doing these sessions each month because I learn so much new information and I really participate the active engagement from our audience and the conversations that have been happening in the chat. Y'all are awesome. So any other final thoughts from anyone before I hand this over to JC to wrap us up and to talk about the survey and certificates?
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And thanks to our amazing panelists. It's great to see the work that's happening throughout South Carolina. There is a link for a Google form in the chat. It will also show up when the Zoom closes out. And if you will please complete that form with your information, we will have the certificates of completion sent to you. We look forward to seeing y'all in March. Thanks everyone for being here today.